Welcome everybody to YOUROAD podcast. I'm Stacy Bovey.
And I'm Christine Bovey. I want to tell you guys a little bit about our first guest. I have had the extreme pleasure of knowing this person for about 15 plus years at the very least. For this person in particular, like I've had the pleasure of calling her a dear friend even through all of these years. Anna, please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
My name is Anna Persaud. Like Christine said, I grew up with her in Kentucky, and I have founded a nonprofit called Swish to Success.
So let's get a little bit more details about your life, what education and schooling do you have?
Okay. So if we want to start all the way back in the beginning, I was born in Guyana. It's a little country in South America. And when I was 4 years old, my family, we moved to Radcliffe, went to U of L, the University of Louisville. And then about 3 years ago, I actually moved overseas with my then boyfriend. We're now engaged. He plays professional basketball overseas. That's led me to found this nonprofit, given me the time. I have my bachelor's in psychology and I have a master in public health. After undergrad, in between undergrad and my master's program, I was an orthodontic clinical assistant for a few years. And then after I graduated and got my master's, I got offered a job at the University of Louisville's med school doing data analysis. It was a job I couldn't pass up because they were willing to teach me skills that I didn't perfect in my master's program, because my concentration was actually epidemiology, not statistics. So I couldn't pass it up.
What drove you to go into this field?
I always knew I always wanted to help people. And that was something I think that I got from my dad. My dad's always done, he doesn't really talk about it much, but he's always, whether it's the church or the community, he's always helping people. He kind of sees it as like, if I have it and I can help you, or I'm in a situation or a position to do so, I'm going to do so to help you kind of like move on or move further. And so I think for me, it's like always been something that's kind of been like deep rooted in me to help people. So after working for a few months or a few years at the orthodontist office, I was kind of like, okay, like I knew this wasn't what I wanted to do forever, but I needed time to figure out. I wasn't going to go back to school and incur more money or more debt from student loans just to go, do something. But I remembered in one of my undergrad classes, someone came and it was actually someone from public health, but they were talking about like charities, and I don't think she might have worked for the state, but I remembered this whole public health thing. So I was like, okay, I started like researching the degree and what you can do with it and all that. And so I ended up applying. I got into the program, and I started there. I applied. I wanted an internship at a nonprofit. Like I wanted a job in a nonprofit. Like that's what I wanted to do.
After your master's degree?
During my master's program.
During your master's program. Okay.
Yeah. When we had a list of places that we can intern at, I really, really wanted a nonprofit. And even applying for jobs afterwards, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get in like with all these people, start networking with it, like, while I was in school, so that once I graduated, I would be able to kind of have my foot in the door to get a job. That never worked out. Like I ended up not even getting an internship with a nonprofit. I actually got my internship at U of L's med school. That's what led me into the job that I got offered. So then I was working there for a few years. I really liked it, but kind of chose love over the job after a while.
That's a good story.
All do.
I was going to say, that's a really good story.
Yeah, at least I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it comes to a point when you're like, okay, you kind of like start to weigh your options out. Like, do I stay stagnant at this job? Do I give my relationship a shot? But then when you have that, when you kind of have like a quote unquote foundation, like with your education, your job history, in that moment, you're like, I can go back and find a job.
Right. I can do anything. If all else fails and my degree doesn't work out, like I've done the 9-to-5 job before. There's something out there.
But I think part of it is he's the only person that is going to be him. If you're going to be with somebody, if you're choosing a guy, it's like, well, yeah, because it's like, it's either you're going to be with him or not. Right.
And that was like, I was like, okay, I've always kind of had this thing, relates to love life, but it relates to other aspects in life. Don't quit something until you know you've exhausted all your options. I mean, he plays basketball over here, so that's where his job is. He plays in Europe professionally. At that point in time, he was in Spain, or he was in France. So I moved to France with him, and now we're actually in Spain, but we're back home in the States every summer, like for the off season, May to August, we're home. I come home often, like every 2 or 3 months or so. I come home for a few weeks, kind of like get things organized at home, and then come back.
Before you even started this nonprofit, is it just like a comfort being home because you guys are overseas all the time?
Once I moved over here, I was kind of like, I don't understand how you were living here by yourself all these years.
Yeah. You wanted me to come over.
Yeah, like when he leaves on a road game, I'm bored. Like the first day, I'm like, okay, I need time to myself. By the end of the second day, I'm like, all right, look, I'm kind of bored.
That's how I always feel.
Yeah.
Like I travel a lot, and I'm like, okay, bye, Louie, I'm good. And then the one day I feel amazing, I'm by myself, and then literally the next day, I'm just like, okay, I miss him. Or like,
yeah.
Where did you find yourself when you moved overseas?
So when I moved over, it was the beginning of 2017. Moving over at first, it was kind of like I moved over in the middle of the season. So I'm like, I was having a good time. Like at the time that I made the decision to move over, I was, it was kind of like, all right, I can come back, I can get a job if I need to. I felt like I wasn't giving up so much. I knew I was giving up a lot, but it wasn't like I was giving up everything. Right. I still, like I said, I still had my education. Still had experience. I made sure I left on good terms with my job, that if I wanted it back, like I could get it back. So it's kind of like that fall moving over here, I was kind of just, when we came back, I'm like, I feel like I gave up everything. And I kind of like, almost like, I felt like I was beginning to lose my identity, or like, I just wasn't feeling productive, I guess you could say. Like going from, I was working all through, since I've been 16, I've worked, went to school. When I got my master's, like all through my master's program, I was working full time and going to school full time. And then once I graduated and got a job, I was going to school I was working full time. It's probably one of the most mentally challenging things and point in my life that I've been through. But I used to, AJ would see me, my fiance's name's AJ, he would see me and he would be, I'd be down, and I'm like, I would just complain. You're living in Europe. Like, what is there to complain about?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? But when you're going through it, it's totally different. Yeah. But he was like, find what you're passionate about. And, that's something that when growing up that you're always taught, like, find what you're passionate about. If you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
But for me, what I was passionate about with like helping people, it wasn't really bringing in money. And, we've all had, you have to make money. That's what is instilled in our brain just from like growing, like our family, outside forces, yeah. And so I really started to think, he was kind of like just really pushed me like, what am I passionate about? I've always wanted to, like I said, I've always wanted to help people. And throughout like my, just growing up, I kind of like always noticed little things. Like there was a lot of people that we went to school with. You guys we're all around the same age.
Yeah.
When a lot of people that we went to school with who were like really good at sports, and then you see them, like you go back to Radcliffe 5, 6, 7 years after you graduate, and you see them and like or you hear about them, they're in jail, or they just got out of jail, or they're working a dead end job, or they're dealing drugs or whatever.
Right. Yeah. People that we thought had so much like potential just dwindled.
Yeah.
Right. And then like working at the orthodontist office, I noticed that was still a problem. I started working at the orthodontist office, it had been 4 or 5 years after I graduated high school myself. And I noticed that this was still a problem. Like, there's still kids who are so talented and have so much potential, but they don't have like the resources or the tools that they need to get to that next level.
Right.
And also, and one thing that I noticed, like most of these people, I know not all of us played sports, but being from a small town, like everybody puts their kids in sports just for something to do, after school. That was like one of the common things, like these kids have sports, that they're good at. And so that's kind of like what kind of like got me like my idea buzzing. I would have loved to do something for like access to healthcare for people, but in my public health program, like I learned it's a lot more complicated to start a nonprofit like with that. So that's kind of what made me sway this direction versus the healthcare.
So was that while you were at Dr. Knight's office? Because it's like it probably was burning behind your like
Yeah.
mind the whole time, but Dr. Knight's office is kind of what sparked it because you had that background of like, oh, you were trying to do a nonprofit, but you didn't know which one now because that wasn't going to work out. And then
Right. Like Dr. Knight's office definitely sparked that like helping kids.
Mhm.
But even at the time, like in retrospect, looking back at like the whole decision to go have a degree in public health, the driving force in that was that I wanted to help people. Like I wanted the access to care. That was what I wanted. Because I mean, that's a topic for another day, but that's another issue that people don't get the care that they need.
Right.
Basic care, whether it be health care, dental care, vision. But that's another topic for another
I
day.
think that's like more like relevant now, or people see more
Right.
now because of the pandemic. They're like, obviously, like we have to make all these changes because otherwise people won't get the right care they need.
Yeah.
And
I
we
mean,
need to control this now.
it's unbelievable. Like I mean, even watching the news, like we watch it all the time, and I'm like, this stuff is like taking me back to like my like the program,
Like, yeah.
my master's program, and I'm like, it's at like the other day when they were talking about like the disparities that exist among races, I'm like, this isn't something new. Like it's only being brought to light now because of the pandemic going on. So in my master's program, I actually like kind of learned a little bit more about like starting a nonprofit for like healthcare and how that works. And I'm like, this is I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is a little bit harder, just the legal aspect of it. I kind of shifted gears towards like when I started like learning more statistics and I got the job at U of L, I was kind of like, okay, like this is what I wanted to do. So like the nonprofit, it was in the back of my mind, but it wasn't really a driving force until I had that conversation with AJ, and he's like, what are you passionate about? So it really made me like think and look within myself, like what is it that Anna's passionate about? Like what do I get a sense of fulfillment out of?
Right.
And like that's where everything kind of culminated and came full circle. Like I thought about my times at Dr. Knight's office. I thought about all the times that like, when we would be home in the summer and like I would see little kids like looking up at AJ, and they're like, they see all these nice things that he has, but they don't necessarily see all the hard work he's put in to get where he's at. And then, I mean, there's just so many other scenarios that kind of like sparked me that I'm like, I mean, I had the opportunity to pursue higher education, but I was in a position where I knew that if I had to take loans out, that I could afford to pay it back, or my parents could afford to help me out. Whereas not everybody has that luxury.
No.
I'm kind of like, kids are our next generation. Like we need to put into them so that we can get out of them when they're older and they can be the best version of themselves. So that's when I was like, I'd really love to start a nonprofit just helping people. Like I have AJ on my side who, people know him. He's the quote unquote success story that he can help me get the word out and help me like bring awareness to my cause.
So what is the target age range for these children that you want to help out?
So the target age range is going to be like 6 to 18, but we really want to hone in on like the middle schoolers and the high schoolers because they're at a pivotal point in their life, or they're very impressionable at that point in time. And, it's like a fork in the road. They can go off on the bad side, or they can go down the right, quote unquote, right path. I think as you grow up and you experience life, you learn there's not a right or wrong path. But so we want to be able to like really offer, like, especially for high school students, like ACT prep courses, or just like tutoring in classes that they're not really doing good in. But also I think that a really good aspect would be like, even when these kids go off to college, still check in with them if they've been through our program, or if their parents, like, at least offer that helping hand, extend it to where it's not just like, oh, well, you have to be 6 to 18. And if you're older that, then, you're just on your own. Because a lot of this, when kids are in college, after they graduate, that's where you start a whole other set of like stumbling blocks and building blocks that you've kind of like got to put together for yourself.
I might be getting a little ahead of myself, and you might mention this, but like in the future, do you see kids that grew up in the program coming back like while they're in college and like coming to help during summer camps or something and being like, hey, like I've been where you were and like now I'm doing this? Like,
yeah, we actually had so that's a really good question. One of our kids who was like a high school senior our first year, he came back last year and was a coach.
Wow.
At our camp. And then we've kind of have like our list of coaches who, even the people who coach at the camps and work the camp, they love it. Like they love giving back, like seeing the smile on the kids' face. Like, our camps are free and we give them a chance not only to learn like basketball skills and, develop their skills or whatnot, but we give them a chance to talk to the coaches so that they can hear. Because yeah, AJ is the one who hosts the camp, and most of the kids are there because of AJ. But, unfortunately, not everyone is going to maybe have that opportunity to play overseas or even play professionally at all. So we want them to hear from other coaches and, other people who basketball might have given them a good job, or, basketball might have given them a full ride, like to hear from other people. So I think that, and like I see more kids, like kids will come back and they look forward to the camp every year. But yeah, for sure we have like people. I think that that'll be a really good thing, like as we grow as a program, to have people who have been part of it and went through, like used our services to kind of like come back and kind of talk to the younger kids now.
So is there like a prerequisite of like getting in the camp, or is it mainly location because you said it is free?
No, yeah, there's no prerequisite at all. But it is in the it's in Shelbyville, right outside of Louisville, like at a gym really close. But we do have kids, like we've had kids from Radcliffe, we've had kids from E-Town, we've had kids from Lexington, Eminence, Louisville, Shelbyville. Last year, in fact, most of our kids were from Louisville, not Shelbyville.
Yeah. So
That's
as
awesome.
long as you could travel there and get there, like,
yeah,
kind of open to you. So do you have like a limit on how many kids you take in?
No. We had 130 kids at our first camp, and then our second camp we had 160 kids.
And
so
how long is the camp?
The camp is a 1-day camp. It's a 1-day free from about 9 to 4. The time just depends on how we make the schedule. But it's essentially 9 to 4. It's on a Saturday, and we provide lunch for the kids, t-shirts for the kids. We have like little dance competitions. This year we're planning on having like where they can win awards, like for different, skills challenges or most improved camper or best attitude. We haven't narrowed down the categories, but for sure we're going to have like awards for them this year. And then also what we're wanting to do is to expand to a back to school bash where we do a free book bag drive. So my plan for that is to get in touch with the school system and see what kids actually need the supplies. Because I don't want to do like a book bag drive where you just come and whoever comes takes one. I want to be able that I don't miss kids who actually are in need of these supplies. Yeah. So we're working out a way to, make sure those kids are invited to come, or those kids are identified that even if they don't come, I can drop off their supplies. And I think with everything going on with the pandemic right now, like that will fare very well this summer.
Right. And for a program and an organization that just started last year, like the only direction this organization is headed in is just going up. It's only expanding, right? So you have all of these plans to just continue to expand. And this is just what you've done so far and what's coming in this year.
Right.
In light of the pandemic.
Yes.
So like going off of what you've done, like how did you even get to start it? I mean, we went to like how you kind of came across the idea, but what was the initial step into that direction of now it's happening?
When I kind of like was had to dig deep and find my passion and all of that, and like when AJ kind of just really helped me to like discover that, it kind of lay dormant for a while. But I had met a person who started a successful nonprofit, so I was like, let me reach out to them and see maybe they can help me. Like their nonprofit has had like a tremendous success. Anyway, so I reached out to them, nothing, didn't hear back. I was kind of like, okay, like I mean, I knew, when you Google something, it's like an overwhelming amount of information that comes back at you. So I just kind of was like, okay, like I'll figure it out when I figure it out. Like, didn't really I mean, I'd look stuff up online, but I wasn't really proactively doing any work. I'm not going to lie. And one day I was having a conversation with one of AJ's teammates' wives. Her name is Val. Follow her on Instagram. She's Val B the designer. Just a plug. But she's really cool. Anyways, we were just talking. I don't even know what we were talking about, but somehow the topic got brought up about like life after basketball, or what do I want to do? And I'll be the first to tell you, like, I don't want to go back and work a 9-to-5 job. Like, I want to have something that I look forward to every day. Going to work, and something that gives me that sense of fulfillment. So I started telling her, like, this is something I really want to start a nonprofit. I started telling her about like I want to be able to help kids, and, went through the whole spiel of kids in our area and how kids look up to AJ and how kids can do so much through sports. She was like, oh, I started a nonprofit. I'll help you. So I was like, oh, you will? And she's like, yeah, like I'll help you get all the paperwork ready that you need. I'll, guide you through the steps. Perfect. Probably she spent with me like 2 weeks to a month, like hours, countless hours. Like we would start working at like 10 o'clock in the morning, wouldn't go home till like 1 a.m. She walked me through every single step, like every paperwork I needed, down to registering with the state, to what I needed to file with the IRS to actually become tax exempt, to be a real nonprofit. And so, her last bit of advice was, she started her nonprofit in New Jersey. She was like, you have to check within your own state to see what what the guidelines are for Kentucky, so that you make sure you tailor all of the paperwork and all of like the bylaws and the articles to incorporate your nonprofit according to Kentucky law. So she told me to reach out to some lawyers and, just go from there, or look it up online.
How many lawyers did you have to end up like reaching out to and talking to about?
So finding a lawyer was actually pretty difficult. I reached out, I would say probably like 10 lawyers or so. I had one lawyer who he told me, don't waste your time. Like, everyone tries to start a nonprofit and it's not worth your time. Like, you're not going to be approved by the IRS. Like, I've seen too many people do it and they don't succeed. So I like vividly remember where I was in everything when I got that phone call from him. And I'm just kind of like, okay, like, all right, I'm not going to lie, I was like really discouraged, but I wasn't like, all right, like I'm not going to do it. I'm the type of person, just with anything in my life, I'm like, I'm going to make sure I exhaust all my options before I just give up. Like, I don't want to live my life like, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, or if I did this differently, it would have worked out like this,
Right.
And I had several lawyers, like I called, and they weren't very versed in like nonprofit law or incorporating a nonprofit. They didn't know about it. And had some people who were like, oh, we'll put you in touch with this other person, and then the other person would be like, I can't really help you, whatever. And the last person was actually a lawyer from Shelbyville. He didn't know much about nonprofits, but he ended up helping me. Like, I had everything, all the paperwork done. He just had to make sure that it was in accordance with Kentucky law. And then he put me in touch with an accountant who was able to help me get all the IRS paperwork, so I could set up our taxes and, our accounts and all that. So those two, they really, really helped me.
So do you think he was from the community, like, he felt that such a need for that area, and that's why he went out of his way to learn this and help you out in that process?
Yeah. I definitely think so. His wife works for the judge exec office of Shelbyville. And we had a meeting with the judge exec of Shelbyville to discuss this idea of Swish to Success with him and if this is something that he thinks the community needs. It all comes full circle. But yeah, I think definitely for sure, like they know that this is a need in the area. And we've had so much support down to even the school system, you know, when I talk to them and I'm like, this is what I want to do. The gym that we use for the camp every year, like they're very accommodating. We had other events that we've used, like the parks for the gym, and you know everyone's always very supportive of our cause.
That's amazing that someone believed in your program and realized that this is a necessity and was willing to like help support.
Yeah, I feel like when you find the right people that are willing to support you, even Val that you're talking about, like
Yeah.
she helped you with everything, and it's like if you hadn't met her at that time, who knows how
No.
long this process would have taken
Exactly.
or if it would
Yeah,
have.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know, like, because I'm not gonna lie, like, even after I met with her and I had all the paperwork done, I went home and went on Google and I'm like, okay, how do I figure out like what needs to be done for Kentucky? But the information was just so overwhelming and it was like so hard to understand. That's when I was like, okay, I definitely need a lawyer. And like back to about the lawyer who told me like it's not worth my time. I guess I didn't like it didn't really completely discourage me or want me to throw this idea away because like I had so many people who already told me like this was such a good idea. Like this is something that is needed.
Absolutely. And like our county, like you said, you can relate to it, which
Right.
is why, like your passion drives so deep is because you've seen that need, even if it's not in our county yet. Like we've definitely seen enough of struggle and adversity like that you fully believe in what you are doing.
Right. And it's one of the things like, you know, when I first started the Swish to Success, everybody thought it was AJ's nonprofit. You know, this is something that he started, but it's like, you know, we've gotten the word out more enough and he always has my back, but it's something that like, this is what I'm passionate about. Like, and, you know, even when I do work on it, like I can be up for hours, like, you know, all the work that we've done, like planning the camps, like planning our book bag drive, reaching out to sponsors, networking with people, our website. Like I'm the one who does all the work. Like I don't outsource it. Like I don't have somebody who I'm like, okay, you're our marketing person or whatever. But honestly, like it's as cliche as it sounds, it's like when I can spend like 10 hours on it straight, get up just to eat or whatever, and look at the time and it'd be like midnight, and I'm like, I feel like I like didn't even work.
Right, because you truly love what you're doing.
Yes, exactly.
I definitely can relate to that. Like, I've had points in my career where, like, you can work 14 to 24 hours, and it's just like, it feels like nothing because you are, like, truly passionate about exactly what you are doing. And, like, time is just, it's,
Yeah,
where
like
did the time go?
yeah, you really understand like the saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And like I honestly like that's one of like the driving forces that keeps me going is that I can, you know, like if I just work hard enough, like I can actually make a living like doing what I love, but enjoying it, like and not feeling like I'm actually working and not dreading going in to work or having to make this phone call or you know contact this person or you know whatever it is.
I feel like you could be like once you get a taste of that, like, oh, I'm doing something I love, you don't want to go back. Like you could just get stagnant in doing the same thing over and over again and just be content with it because you don't know any better. You don't know
Yeah.
what doing what you love feels like.
And I mean that was like one of the things like when I was like backtrack like for a second, like when I was working at U of L, like I mean I really liked my job. I was very blessed to have like an opportunity for my boss to it was literally on the job training. Like I can't not tell you like he held my hand and he was like training us and exposing us to new things and like new experiences because he knew that for all of us like that was a stepping stone. Well, I say all of us, but it was only me and two other guys that worked there, you know, doing analysis, but like he knew that that was a stepping stone and he helped like he was working with different companies like like Clorox and different like drug companies and stuff, doing consulting and teaching them how to design their study to get X results that they want. So he like, I feel like I always, like you said, going back to like the stagnant thing, like if I would have stayed, like I just felt so stagnant in like all my other positions that I knew that that wasn't really, like I used to always ask myself, do you see yourself doing this when you're 40 years old? And I could never answer yes.
Right.
But this, like Swish to Success, I can see, like I want this to be like an organization, like when I have kids, I pass this along to them, like that they can continue, just giving back to the community, like especially when you're in a situation where you are so blessed and you have those opportunities, I feel like it's only right to like pay it forward.
Right.
I agree, yeah.
So, for those of us listening, how can we support Swish to Success? Just give us all the details.
Okay, so our website is www.swish2success with the number 2. Our Instagram is the same thing, Swish to Success. Facebook, we have a YouTube channel. It's all Swish to Success. You just search that. On our website, you can make a donation. There's a link there for donations for our basketball camp. There is a link. We offer different incentives in exchange for sponsorships, different marketing and advertising incentives for businesses. And you can always contact me. The email is on our website, but it's info@swishtosuccess.com. If you want to send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, you can email. There's an email link directly on the website as well. So,
Yeah, reachable.
Yeah, and what can we look forward to like for the rest of this year? I know like the pandemic is going on, and you all had a lot going on, but is there anything that you want us to know or look forward to
the future?
Yeah.
So we're still hosting our basketball camp on July 18th. That'll be in Shelbyville. I haven't canceled it yet because I feel like July is far out from now. I'm keeping an eye on the news and kind of the status of the situation and what's going on. Because in the back of my mind, I mean, it's too early to cancel it for me. But also I'm like, this might be the first thing that the kids have to look forward to with all the spring sports and school being canceled, It'll just be a good opportunity for them. But we're definitely going to do the back to school bash, which will be like a fun day for kids. That's our initial plan with the book bag drive. But if not, if we can't do the back to school bash, where we'll have like a carnival games and stuff, we're definitely still going to at least do the book bags and get the book bags to the schools.
Awesome.
That sounds great. So like in the long run, like you mentioned that it's only in Shelbyville and you want to have it in Radcliffe, like what about in different states? Do you want to spread it throughout? Because Louis and I both fly fish. Well, he got me into fly fishing, and we ran across somebody that runs a nonprofit where she's not the only one that started it. She's just somebody that facilitates it in Kentucky, and she teaches young kids to fly fish. Is that something that you guys are looking into or in the future would be interesting?
Yeah, definitely. I actually had a girl reach out to me on Instagram, and she was like, how can we get this to San Diego? And that's definitely something, even if it's just for a basketball camp. And I mean, like, I don't know if I said this before, but of course we have a handle on basketball right now, but we want to expand to all sports to be inclusive of football, baseball, tennis, soccer, just so that, we're not going to discriminate just for kids who play basketball, like, because all kids can use our resources that we have to offer. So hopefully in the future, like, we can partner with other organizations, or, if there's a person who wants to bring a camp to a city, but they don't really know how to do it, or, how, like, what they need. I definitely want to be able to extend Swish to Success to collaborate with them, to help them, and just bring awareness and help as many people, as well as many kids as we can help.
Yeah. So I just want to like thank you for coming on and like sharing your organization and spreading the good news, and like I think what you're doing, I think what we both think what you are doing is amazing. But as we close our show, we try to make it fun, and there's 3 questions that we'd like you to answer for us. One of them is, what is your most favorite trip that you have ever taken?
So I have taken a lot of trips, but favorite.
I mean, living in Europe for, the past 3 years, I'm sure there's so many trips, but like give our audience like your most favorite trip. And this is like our fun question.
I don't have a particularly favorite trip, like one trip, but my favorite place has got to be Paris.
And why is that?
It was the first place when AJ and I first started dating. I was kind of just always intrigued with it and always talked about how much I wanted to see it. And he surprised me one day after practice. He was like, "Pack your bags, we're taking a trip." And so we went for like an overnight trip, and it's the place we got engaged.
Yeah.
But it's always, every time I go back, to me, it's like it never gets old. There's always something new to see. It's just, I mean, I'm just in love with the city of love.
Yeah. I feel like there's just something about Paris. Like there's like a whole bunch of different cultures and foods, and it's beautiful. And like what you said, you could always find something new. Like there's things in little crevices of Paris.
Something in the air.
As cliche as it is, I'm like, there's just something about it that I just can't get enough of.
Yeah, and for our audience, yes, her fiance proposed to her in Paris, in front of the Eiffel Tower. Such an epic proposal. I'm so happy for you guys.
You can see the photos on her Instagram. Beautiful.
And the other last two questions we'd like to ask is, if you were able to recommend or refer someone's journey on our show, who would you have in mind?
The first person that comes to my mind is my cousin Alicia. She's actually, she lives in Guyana, and her story is very interesting. But long story short, she's ended up publishing 2 poetry books.
That's amazing.
She has a website. I think it's infinitecreative.com. You can visit. Her poetry is very, very good.
Yeah. I wish I was poetic, but
I'm just not very poetic. I'm not good with words, but
I am not good with words.
her story and her journey is so inspiring. Like I listen to it and I'm inspired to push to be better, like not just stop here. Because I feel like as individuals, we're constantly evolving. Not only is the world around us evolving, but we're constantly evolving.
Right.
And you've always got to kind of like, I've had a person, one of my dentists, I was talking to him and he was like, I'm almost 50 years old. And he was like, I feel like people look at me and they think I've reached the peak of my career. He was like, but for me, there's always something else.
Right.
Yes. I feel like if you're not constantly wanting to learn and grow, there's a problem with that. You should always want to better yourself or find something else out there. Like being stagnant, like what we talked about before, that should not be like your happiness.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like once you've kind of reached one pinnacle, there's another pinnacle right over the horizon. And Christine, back to what you were saying earlier, it's not always about money.
No.
I think that people are just instilled at a young age, like money equates happiness or money equates success, but it doesn't.
I'm honestly curious like what the next generation's going to be like after us, our kids or something, because we already like figured this out. And I just am so curious to see like how they grow up and like what their lives are going to be like if our generation's already figuring it out ourselves.
Because like another thing I wanted to say is, I feel like for me, Swish to success, like it's like the one of the first things I can say that I'm truly proud of myself for doing. All throughout my life, like, my parents, my siblings, friends, whoever, everyone's always like, I'm so proud of you. Like all of my accomplishments, like getting my undergrad, getting a job, getting my master's, getting another job. Like, everyone's always been like, oh, they're so proud of these things. But I'm kind of just like, I'm always like, oh yeah, thank you. But it never really, for me, it was like it didn't hit me. Like I remember sitting there at graduation, at my master's graduation, and I'm just like, okay, like this almost over. No, like I didn't really have any emotions because to me it was like I was like, I'm not gonna lie, like yes, it's an accomplishment. Yes, like you do feel a sense of like being proud of yourself, but you're not like how other people say that they're so proud of you. Like I didn't feel that for myself.
Right.
But I looking back, like after like don't get me wrong, like with Swish to Success, I'm nowhere that I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be. And like establishing this nonprofit, I've looked back and I'm like, I think that the reason why I probably felt that way was because it, like for me, school and getting a job, it was like a 1 to 10 process. Like here's step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when you get to step 10, okay, you're good. Like you've accomplished whatever it is you were supposed to accomplish. But for Swiss to Success, like it wasn't laid out for me. Like I didn't have somebody who told me like, all right, here's a 10-step process. Like I had to figure it out. Like, and I'm not talking about just uh incorporating the nonprofit, but even like planning these basketball camps, how to reach out to sponsors, how to thank them after they've given you their money, like I'm learning how to reach back out to sponsors to, like how to introduce new ideas. Like it's such a learning process for me for everything. And I think that's what makes me so proud of it, is that it's like something I finally had to figure out on my own, but I did it.
Right. So actually that leads into our next question is, if you had the chance to go back and talk to yourself in the past, what advice would you give yourself?
This is a really good one. I've thought about this a lot, like, cause I just, as like, I don't know, like, I really just want to help people. Like, I want people to get that sense of satisfaction that I have. But just aside from the nonprofit, just in life in general, if I had to go back and tell myself, my younger self, one thing, even, 10 years ago, I would let myself know, like, you are responsible for your own happiness. Like, you are the only person who can create that. Like, yes, there's going to be people who are going to be supporting role in your story, like your significant other, your parents, your sibling. There will be like tangible things, or a job, or, a career choice. But at the end of the day, you are the only person who's responsible. Like you are the only, like you can't depend on an external factor or force to bring you that happiness. Like it's within you, and and it's okay to be selfish with your time, your energy, your emotions, or whatever it is, so that you can dig deep within yourself to figure it out.
Right. And I think that's so relevant in today's world, because you look for society to give you that validation, whether it's on a social media platform that said like, you've got 10,000 followers, you're great, right?
Yeah.
But or, your parents are like, I'm so proud of you. And it's like nobody else's validation matters unless, like you said, unless it's coming from within and it's coming from yourself, that you know that you're truly doing exactly what makes you happy.
Right, exactly.
And I think part of like the selfishness you said, like I feel like that comes with age. Like you realize like you don't want to put yourself out there and like give all your time and energy into these things that you're like, this isn't for me anymore. And you just kind of learn to be selfish. And I feel like with age, like you just kind of grow to learn that.
And some people think it's not about being selfish with tangible things like money and all that, but it's like your time is like the most valuable asset that you will ever have in your life. And and like for you to be able to kind of pour out into the world, you can't pour out into the world from an empty cup, whether that be your relationship, your job, into your parents, or what, your marriage, your kids, whatever it is. Like you yourself, like you have to find that fulfillment within yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I think I don't want you to forget this one thing. You also have kind of dipped into this web design and consulting, or wanting to consult later in the future, helping other people do nonprofits.
Yes, that's definitely something, like, just from a personal standpoint, like a personal goal of mine, along with Swish to Success. Like, I want to be able to help other people who want to start a nonprofit. I've actually helped one of our coaches for our camps reached out to me, and he wanted to start a nonprofit, kind of for food insecure people in Louisville. And I helped him. I went over, did the same thing that Val did with me. I went with him. I showed him and told him this is how you do it, spent time with him. And I mean, he's an incorporated nonprofit now, and they do events in the community. So I felt like for me, it was like I wanted to, for him, I like someone helped me. So it's my duty to pay it forward and help him. But it is something I want to do in the future, because just when I was starting the nonprofit, like there wasn't very many resources available of like a person that you can go and meet with and tell you like how to do X, Y, and Z. So I want to help be able to provide that to people. And the web design thing, so this is something I kind of like newly tapped into. Our website needed to be updated, and I had one of my friends, she told me, she was like, you can do it. And I played around with it for a little bit, and I updated the website, added all the new stuff to the camp. And then I actually made AJ a website. AJ's best friend invested in a new company, and I made them their website. So web design is definitely something that I am going to branch off into.
You become like a one-stop shop
Yeah.
for all things, especially nonprofit, and like creating a website. I feel like that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, because I mean, the age that we're in with technology, like everybody's going to need a website. Everybody's going to need a social media. Like, that was one of the same. I mean, you guys, even with your podcast, like one of the first things that you probably looked up was, we need a website. We need a one place that people can find our podcast, our links, our contact information, what we're about. So that's definitely something. I mean, I find it like I really enjoy doing it.
Well, I am so happy you have such a heart for others and want to help them in so many different ways. We're happy that you came and joined us and talked to us, and thank you for your time and everything.
Yes, Anna, thank you so much. And for the audience out there, again, if you are looking to start your own nonprofit, or if you're in the area and you're looking for this sort of organization,
or if you want to
not
bring your kids.
Right, exactly.
Or if you want to bring your kids.
Yeah, do not hesitate to reach out.
We will link everything below, like all her contact information, her website, how to get hold of her, and maybe even do some collabs in different states and everything. So.
And if you need a website.
And a website. Or consulting on nonprofits. So
thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me on.